Well, thank you, Rob. It is amazing to be here. I want to thank the members on the board who I had a privilege of meeting with before, and all the members here, over 300 people here. It's amazing. I want to acknowledge our great Fire Marshal, John Pegg. John's sitting over here. And I want to say that for me, and we'll talk about it, it has been an honor of a lifetime and a privilege to serve as Solicitor General and to bring and echo and amplify the voice of Premier Ford that our public safety matters and that our respect for your association, for the chiefs, and for everyone that keeps Ontario safe is absolute and constant. I also want to reflect and remember Chief Ian Lang. I participated with the Premier in the memorial service for Chief Lang, and it was very personal. I told Rob and the board earlier this morning that when I had an opportunity now to participate in 2 memorial services at Queen's Park alongside the Lieutenant Governor and the Premier, it wasn't the regalia that I remember. It wasn't the uniforms. It wasn't the fire trucks at Queen's Park Circle. What I remember that was something that's etched in my mind is the etchings made by the families immediately after the memorial when they take the charcoal and paper and they etch the names of their loved ones. And I told Rob that I stayed after the service had long ended to stay with the families until they left and to understand the commitment that their loved ones made for public safety. The stories are quite amazing. What drew a person to have a career as a firefighter and then a chief and a command leader all those years? What drove them to want to make a difference? And the ultimate stories one can learn is meeting those families and just sitting there. So when I left that day, I felt consumed with emotion and as naturally reflective on the event, I wanted to do more. So let's go back a little bit in 2023 and just reflect on what happened in 2023 in relationship to the Ontario government led by Premier Ford and the OAFC, and how grateful we are, Rob, to get to know you and the board and Jeremy and to speak as frequently as we do. I said to Rob earlier that one of the greatest privileges I have had is never being thrown out of a fire hall. I have to tell you, because I like, and I coined the phrase, I stop the car. Wherever I am, and Jerry Cieslik is here, Jerry takes great care of me, I'll say, Jerry, there's got to be a fire hall nearby. We have to stop the car. And we do. We've stopped the car a number of times in Niagara Falls. We've stopped the car in London. We've stopped the car in little towns all across Ontario, in the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, in Ottawa, in Thunder Bay. I mean, the list goes on. And each time we stop the car, we'll knock on the door and just ask to come in so that we can understand what is happening locally. So many things I have learned have actually been from the chiefs, who've taught me the simplest things about new equipment that's now being deployed. I was in Bradford, and I saw the new pumper where the controls are in the inside with LED. It was overwhelming. I spoke to the chief this morning, and I reminded him of that. I've learned about different pieces of equipment that are essential all across Ontario. Marine equipment and aerial equipment and pumpers and tankers and bunker gear and things that are required and essential. I've been to Collingwood twice, not that long ago too. There you are. Collingwood's got a phenomenal hall, and they had the foresight to build that hall before COVID ensued. And I just want to congratulate, the team there for really putting together something amazing. But all over Ontario, people have a right to feel safe. I said to Rob and the board earlier, we have a responsibility too. It's not only about your responsibility to keep us safe, it's our responsibility as a community, as a society, to take measures to protect ourselves. And that's why you educate us. That's why you help inform people who are coming into new subdivisions. What are the expectations that you have of us? So I have been a great proponent of acknowledging the fact that we are a part of the story too. When John Pegg, I think one of the greatest fire marshals we have, and by the way, John, I remember seeing your picture at Innisfil. I was there, you were a chief up there. I said to the chief of Innisfil Bradford today, you haven't aged a bit. And how lucky we are to have John. John held a seminar, the Safer Seminar, and I spoke then exactly the same things, how we have to overcome this concept that we don't have a role to play in our own fire safety. And I told the story that I lead by example myself. We threw out our fire extinguishers this year. We didn't know the last time our home batteries in our smoke detectors were changed. So we changed them all. We made sure that our kids, even though they're now in their low 20s, know how to escape. What do you do? What are the steps you take to keep yourself safe? So, as I said, this is very important. But this past year as a government, and as we set a standard of respect that I am proud to echo and amplify that Premier Ford has set, and you visited us at the legislature, this is absolute and constant, as I've said. When we look at the changes we've made to the presumptive cancers just this year alone, I remember at the start of the year, and Minister McNaughton and I and the association were together, and we made a transformational announcement by acknowledging that people who have succumbed to cancers through their careers shouldn't be cast aside. They need to be respected, and they need to be treated properly and fairly. And that's why, together with discussing with the association, we made important announcements. When Minister David Pacini came to succeed Minister McNaughton in September, he breathed new life into the next phases of this story, of this discussion, of the efforts that the government needed to take. And that's why we brought forward the changes to include esophageal cancer and reduce the period from 25 to 15. And in large measure, it was because of the discussions we had with your leadership. The challenges you face every day don't end there. We deal with post-traumatic stress, mental wellness issues each and every day. And that's why when we announced we were moving forward with the Runnymede Health Center Caledon campus, which will one day be a place, a respite for people suffering. This includes firefighters. This includes chiefs. This is very important. And it's something that I'm absolutely committed to moving forward, and we're going to do it. In June, when I was in Ottawa and I spoke to the OPFFA, I want to just again state something we talked about when we met with the leaders just a few minutes ago, your board. How incredible is it that you have a government led by Premier Ford, the OPFFA, and under its leadership with Greg Horton, the OAFC under the leadership of Rob Grimwood and Jeremy and the board here, the Fire Marshal John Pegg. How is it that today these are the golden years of cooperation and understanding and conversation? And Rob reminded me, it is rare that historically, and going back through the careers that you have, this wasn't always the case. Again, I'm privileged to be part of this golden years of conversation because we can get a lot done together. And earlier this year, I was together with your association's leadership in Thunder Bay. Special shout out to Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay taught me a lot, actually. I had a real live, and I'll talk about it in just a second, a real live example of why we need simultaneous notification. But the $35 million that we're investing to modernize and respond fire firefighting in the north is important, and that's why we're moving forward with 2 new training units. We had one up there, and Rob and I went in that. That's important for the communities. So I want to talk about simultaneous notification, then I want to say a few words about the chiefs who have volunteer services. Simultaneous notification, for me, is something that I understand why we need it. I was always fascinated as an innovator and entrepreneur to understand how to get things done. And Premier Ford is that person as well. He always likes to know how we can get to the finish line much sooner than anybody ever expected us to do. So I'm in Chatham, and I had a real live example of being outside at the Chatham Fire Hall, and an ambulance drove down the street, and I'm saying, why aren't you guys moving? And they said, we don't know if we're going. We didn't get a call yet. And then in Thunder Bay, one of the fire halls shares a facility with the EMS, and we hear the alarms go, and if anybody has seen me in your fire halls, I like to shoot a video to acknowledge that I'm there and to thank those people in the local communities that keep those communities safe. And the alarm went off for EMS, but not for the fire. And I'm saying, when are you guys going? So I believe, and John Pegg is 100% behind it. We are moving forward with what needs to be done to provide us with the framework to integrate the technology. And I want to thank Paul at Oakville and also the chief in Guelph, whose communities have started to understand how this can happen. It's not so complicated. And when you hear the stories in rural Ontario about what 5 minutes means, 5 minutes is a lifetime. 5 minutes to a person lying on the ground is absolutely a lifetime, and we will continue as part of the ministry to move this thing forward, and we'll dialogue with you, Rob, and let you know how we're doing. I want to give a special shout out, because if I don't, I'll be remiss by doing it. Chief Terry Jones, great friend of mine and chief, a mentor to me because we speak quite often, enlightened me on the roles that volunteer firefighters play in Ontario. They are critical. They do it because they want their communities to be safe. They do it because they have a calling that they have a responsibility to be a part of it. And it's intrinsically an incredible opportunity for them to do something for their communities that they'll really never get adequate thanks for. And you know what? I really appreciate it. When Chief Terry Jones told me, and I remember the numbers, I think you can see if I'm remembering it, 19. Do you have 19 volunteer fire halls? 19, and almost 400, slightly under 400. I think it was in the 370s. Volunteers. This is an important part of the conversation. For the chiefs that administrate fire services that are dependent either on some volunteers or all volunteers or no volunteers, it is very, very important. And I know, Chief Jones, you have the professional firefighters in Lindsay, but you have this network. It is something that I have come to appreciate. When I met with the township of Bluewater just at the Roma conference just 2 days ago, I offered my condolences on the volunteer firefighter that we lost, John. And I remember that story, that day unfolding, about how a volunteer firefighter came forward to do his duty and unfortunately lost his life. Our government's commitment, whether it be supporting the understanding of how fire safety works throughout our province, moving forward in our recent legislation with the AMPs, the administrative monetary penalties, which give fire services in communities across Ontario I would say a renewal of being respected again. Our government will not stop. The Fire Protection and Prevention Act and the recent steps we've made to enhance it and its effectiveness are important. But the most important thing is what I said at the beginning. If you want respect, you have to give respect. And whether it be going to the memorial, whether it be stopping the car, whether it be making early morning telephone calls to Rob that I do, or to some of the chiefs that I've gotten to know, or John, simply to say, John, I saw this beautiful fire truck in LaSalle, and I'm not going to see this thing sent to South America. What can we do? And working together with the association, actually, I want to congratulate John because we put together a data portal. We are not going to become the official agents of used fire trucks. What we're going to do is allow people to communicate one to another so that services in Northern Ontario or elsewhere in rural Ontario have an opportunity to know what equipment may be on the move. Again, I look back to Rob and the calls I had with Rob to say, I think we can do more. I see an opportunity. Last week, I was at the University of Waterloo looking through the eyes, and I tell you, I was so excited to be there with PhD students in the Department of Engineering who are trying to manipulate a chemical analysis that will allow one day, please God, to have a different type of lining and bunker gear so that the carcinogenics don't go through to the skin. There's so much going on. And each step of the way, I feel honored and privileged that I can inject the Premier's optimism and his love and respect for the firefighters and everybody that keeps us safe. For me, it's just simply been a privilege of a lifetime. And as I reboot for 2024, and by the way, I've already had the conversation with Rob. I said, Rob, I need to know what are your priorities for 2024. I want to know about it so we can push harder and push faster and visit more fire halls and have more discussions and continue the conversation. This is my commitment to you. It's a privilege to be here today. It's an honor to serve, and I'm grateful to the association that asked me to say a few words. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, and miigwech.